Hello, Cindy Olin here with Create Your Own Luck in Love, and welcome to our last but not least interviewee for Level Up Your Love Life here. I'm here with Gabi Love, and I'm really excited. I've been looking forward to having you on and just, diving in, chatting about a formula of a fulfilled heart. So we're going to get into that in a moment. But first, I want to share a little bit about Gabi and, who she is, what she's about, and then we'll go ahead and dive right in. So she is a chief industrial organizer and spearhead of Dr. Love Enterprises and Love Match LLC. So Dr. Love, which I love the name Dr. Love, has set up hundreds of singles on dates and relationships, and you've studied marriage and family counseling with in a Master of Arts program, and you currently assist men and women as a love consultant, and you're based in Naples, Florida, and currently you're completing a Master's of Science. Gabi's completing. I get to be able to talk, so sorry guys.
Educated.
she's got all these initials behind her name. Very well educated, organizational psychology, and she looks forward to starting her dissertational doctoral graduate work later this year. Goodness. Assisting love lives has been a lifelong passion of hers. And I know that you're always pleased and excited to be of service. So welcome, Gabi. So excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here, Cindy. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's just dive right in. What's a quick synopsis of how you define a fulfilled heart?
Well, it is different for all of us. Mm-hmm. I did study marriage and family counseling in a Master's of Arts, which is part of what you were identifying me as degree-wise. But I've also lectured in front of thousands of people and worked with thousands of clients, and been fortunate enough to have thousands of people, men and women, singles and couples, married or not, interesting relationships, all of that fun stuff that we have access to in 2021, of all ages. So I take info and knowledge in love from people in their 20s all the way up till their 90s. Because we can all learn from each other, and we're all in this together trying to figure it out. It is a world that is not easy for any of us. We all know a few happily married or happily cohabitating wonderful people that have figured it out, but the numbers still are low in that realm as divorce rates raise yearly. eHarmony website has been the only empirically, scientifically proven site in love to have actually reduced the divorce rate since divorce rates started, which have started since we decided to marry. So with all of that, we are all in need of Cindy's work per se in teaching us how to create our own luck and love per se. I look at it a little bit more in a scientific sense. I teach my clients, the men and the women, I work mostly with men, and then they help me take that information into us women that really want to figure out our men.
Mm-hmm.
And the men really want to figure us out. So creating luck and love really starts with the intention that I do believe the higher evolved person of 2021 really wants access to. You know, once we're past hardships, once we're past getting degrees, you know, I'm going into doing my doctorate degree. So I really am the doctor of love. You know,
Yes, you are.
huh?
Yes, you are.
I'm working hard towards that, you know, and it's out of the beauty of what I feel is the most. Let me back up a moment. The sex industry is one of the number one money making industries in the world. I believe it may be the first. It may not at this point. I'd have to check with my financial advisors. But that my goal before I end this life is to change that to where love and relationships are the number one money making industry in the world, because there are more people alive today that hope to create their own luck and love versus luck and sex, or have sex, or you know, sex is available to all of us, unfortunately, even our children, if we don't you know, edit our computers appropriately. You know, and so, but love is what is a mystery. And I think it's a part of the human condition, from our teenage years and all the way up to the 80-year-olds that I work with, you know, and that's why Cindy and I really, we are of service with our consulting in this, because it is the biggest mystery. I mean, my degree, my Master's of Science in Industrial Organizational Psychology, makes me be able to go into a corporation or into someone's business life, fine tune it, strategize it, create luck in that. And it's wonderful, and it pays well, and it's great, and it really helps people, but it doesn't fulfill people in their hearts the way that feeling lucky in our love lives does.
So what's the formula for attaining that, you know, fulfillment?
Well, it's different for men and women. You know, we do have different anatomy.
Yeah.
We are, and for, you know, for whatever reason, we are not equal. And I was a women's studies minor in my undergrad work. I was a psychology major and a women's studies minor. I consider myself a feminist, but yet women get up and walk out of my lectures all the time, especially when I lectured at the Trump Towers, thinking that I was taking the man's side. I don't take sides. I look at statistics. I look at what's really going on. And all the women that have gotten up and walked out of my lecture, wherever that's been, they've all come back. So they knew that I just hit a point that they, at that moment of that lecture, of watching me, were not ready to take in and admit that, hey, maybe they were not guilty of it, but it stirred up emotion in them. What was your exact question?
What's the formula for women and for a man? I know there's differences in both. But how do
Yes.
you define that?
Well, the good news is there are similarities. So the main similarity for a person that really is consciously aware of bettering themselves to then infiltrate bettering their own love lives. And they could already have families and wives and be married, or whether they're single. And the similarity is that a highly evolved human being today can admit that is a common goal. Now, the fact that us women, we can have 17 children in a lifetime if we're very busy and we want a lot of kids. That's a fact. For men, testosterone, if they're very busy, and I'm talking hour to hour in 1 month, and I'm being dramatic about it, they could have 800 babies in 1 month, where us women can have 17 in a lifetime. So in that regard, how we access fulfillment is quite differently, because we are quite different biologically, sociologically. We have to act different whether we are or not. And so we access fulfillment and love in quite different manners, being biologically just born differently and being able to reproduce and being able to have different goals by genetics, whether we like them or not. We just have to be there. So fulfillment for us women who can only have 17 children in a lifetime if we stay extremely busy. So I'm just using that as an extreme number. Fulfillment for a woman comes from feeling confident that we make the right decision when we choose to give our body in love through intimacy. It is a higher decision-making process for us women. Mm-hmm. Through all of what I explained. For men, the fulfillment comes. I work only with high society, so I work only with highly evolved men. And for those men, the fulfillment comes from not making a selfish decision for themselves and their own needs in heart, sex, intimate matters, with disregard to what the woman that they are choosing to engage with would also feel is best for her.
Okay.
A good man wants to be a good man for the woman that he chooses. A good woman will only give herself to a good man that she chooses.
So are you? God, I'm getting feedback here. I don't know why. So are you saying that a good woman only procreates with a?
Not in today's society. We all have sex just for whatever reason. You know, we want to have, and we're fortunate in the 70s. Our mothers certainly did not have that. We can today. I mean, I work with a lot of 20-year-olds. They'll have sex in the back of a taxi cab, and feel great about it. It's, you know, things are changing. Every 10 years of history changes sociologically as to how any of us can be, and then how we can feel good about it. And it all backs up to that real biology. Okay. So then we have lots of personality types, and some people are a little bit more about the fun. Some people are born with their only goal of uniting in a family matter and raising a family and making their lives about a child. And we need those people, or we would not be here. If everyone was a weird scientist like me, who is busy helping other love lives versus my own, and I don't want children, hey, the world would not keep going around. So it's very different. And that's where my coaching work comes in, is I help people figure out, hey, let's get honest with who you really are. Let's forget society for a moment and fix your own heart fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And fixing our own heart fulfillment may integrate with what society prefers of our choices in that, and it may not. So to me, it's very important to figure out where we all fit in that. Personality, I'm very much a Carl Jungian. Personality typologist. My grad work is very much based on that. When I start my doctoral studies and my dissertations, it's going to be on completing the work that Carl Jung died, because we all die, and he died and didn't get to finish. Freud died and didn't get to finish his work. Scientists, we all die. Elon Musk has created these fantastic, he's changed the world of vehicles, and he's going to die. And somebody's going to have to come on and then continue his work, or not, pending where socialization is at that time. So that's how I look at my work. We need to figure out, who are you? And it's okay, because there's 16 different personality types that none of us can escape. Cindy, we can work. I would love to spend some time with you, just some lunch, and figure you out and give you my analysis as to who you really are, and then give you an exact data sheet of the men that are best for you. Are you married? I don't even know much about you.
No, I'm in a relationship. I'm in a long-term relationship. Yeah.
And because you're so conscious in creating your own love in your own love life, you've also done so much work in releasing blocks. That's what you teach us, and that's what part of this is too. We can't even begin to think about perfecting our love lives or creating luck in it if we are blocked.
Right. Yeah. And you've got to know who you are and what it is that you desire to create. So do you have a personality analysis system that you work with?
Absolutely. I've been a personality typologist in grad school for over 10 years. Just because I keep changing programs just to keep getting more knowledge. Finally, I'm going to allow myself to get this Master's of Science in Industrial Organizational Psychology just so I can finally start my doctorate. But I've been enjoying marriage and family counseling and Master's of Art and all that, just for the information. So yes, through that, I have an exact system of love consulting that I do, love analysis that I do with people that resonate with my work. And I also do matchmaking. I have matchmaking parties in Naples, Florida currently now. Mm-hmm. I believe through all my studies through psychology, I'm one of the best matchmakers available.
Well, that's phenomenal. Matchmaking can be challenging.
I know, but not for me. I used to set up hundreds of clients in a year in New York City, which is the hardest dating market, just for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. I only had 3 disasters. Out of thousands of people I've set up on a lunch, dinner.
Hats off to you. because that is great. I've done, high end matchmaking in my old life myself, and I find that people are most successful once they've done the inner work of getting really clear on what they want and unhooking from old patterns and things that can sabotage you even subconsciously in your love life. So
and you know what? That's kind of where I lack in my own, and I've been fine with it. But I'm 45, never been married. But my life's passion, I've helped thousands of people. So that makes me feel of service. But what I need is to hire you for my blocks, which I'm conscious of them, but I hold on to them because I am the weird scientist, 4.5% of women on earth that prefer to be scientists versus family women or versus married, so we're all different. We have to accept each other, but I could definitely use your work in dismantling my blocks. Doesn't mean I'm going to get married someday, I still struggle with the concept of how the heck am I going to know if I'm going to like you in 10 years?
Well, that's a block too. So we can unhook from that block. And once we unhook from that block, then you get to decide, here's the great thing about, being alive during this time. You can create your own idea of commitment and long-term relationship that doesn't have to include marriage, or it could include marriage. And, I think there's typically, usually some fears that are underneath that hold people back from getting married, or it's a not really wanting to be like everyone else and being that traditional person. And you can blaze your own trail and have a really amazing partnership too.
Right. When I was 12 years old, I told my family, and 12, I don't know where I got, probably Teen Magazine, because that I was obsessed with at the time. I don't know how, but I was announcing to my family already at that point, I want a lifelong partnership. I do dream of, because you can't really be a truly evolved person all on your own. I'm very much a loner scientist. I can hang out, playing with equations and formulas and geometry and empirical sciences and, mind fuck myself alone happily. But that's the coward way. Because when we can really master that with a partner like you have, that's when you have the opportunity to have double the joy, double the everything. It's quite easy and cowardly to master being alone, though most people can't do it. So then they go off and do silly things like get into relationships they're really unhappy with, which to me is a way worse nightmare than being alone and happy. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that choose to be uncomfortable and unhappy, but cohabitating for social status, for supposed fake fulfillment of their heart, which really is more catering to fulfillment of what people think of them.
I think sometimes that can, in my experience, that there's such a disconnect with self, and at that, not always, but there can be a disconnect with self and what what your heart truly desires, and maybe even an oppression of, I don't get to have it, or it's, it's not totally possible for me. Somebody says hello, Dr. Love, on the stream. So, what are your thoughts around that?
Fulfillment of the heart, I think, should be the biggest goal for all humans. I have a lot of girlfriends. They have amazing millennial children or teenage children. And since I do have more time, and I having children has never been a priority for me, but I love children. My volunteer work is all with children. And so my best girlfriends and guy friends, they throw their children onto me as some sort of support system for them. And I learned so much from the teenage children of today, from the millennial children of today. And it's interesting because they feel the way that you just described. They're open, they want to figure it out. And I believe it's a lifelong process, and it does change decade by decade as to how all our personality types can access it. I think that is the first step to having a fulfilled heart for every individual. You must know who you are and then admit it and be honest. Like what you said, break that block that's blocking you from not accessing it, being ignorant to it, or being in denial of it. I look at all of those as blocks to fulfillment in love. So that's step one. And that sometimes I can do a lot of it on my own, calling myself Dr. Love, but I'm going to call you next week and hire you to help me even further. We all have to be that humble because none of us can see clearly in the blocks in our
we all have blind spots
in our marriage, in our relationship. We can't. I truly believe in some people get it through their groups. Church. I'm not religious, but I respect that because a lot of people get it from a group. I have been in a group as a community emergency response team member. And that allowed me to be in a group so then I can say something and get feedback from others. When we want to master any area of our lives, whether it's work, love, family, children, we really cannot do it on our own. We really do need help that can see us through an objective eye. Because a subjective self is powerless overall.
So asking a question. Can you address how Myers-Briggs type indicator affects all of this, given your educational background, Dr. Love?
Yes, I've been studying Myers-Briggs. I'm 45 now. I think I read my first, I was obsessed with Carl Jung by age 12. Freud, all this, all of it. I've read it all. I resonated with Carl Jung. I started studying Myers-Briggs in my late teens. And been in my marriage and family counseling time on that master's. That's all I did for 5 years straight, is just pull from Oxford, Yale, all the top universities, any empirical study on Myers-Briggs. So I do respect it a lot. It is limited. Scientifically, it's not considered valid or reliable, but yet still every scientist uses it because nothing better has come upon. That is my goal with my doctorate, is to write something resonating with it that is valid and reliable to scientists. So I do use it in my work. And Carl Jung died. And my favorite author that explains it is David Keirsey, who's also dead now, but his son has taken over and continuing the studies of the 16 personality types. Where science stands right now is out of 100, most people fit into 82%. Those are the people that come out of the womb with goals of a family and procreation. And without those people, we would not be an evolutionary humanity of actually making more children, and we'd have less people on Earth overall. They're very necessary.
So let me ask you a question around that. How do you utilize this skill set that you have and your education to support you in matching people up? Like, how do you see, how do you do that? Do you give them a test and then, match them based on their personality styles and values, or how does that work?
Yes. I do give them a test. I can go to lunch with anyone and know already, and then I give them a test, and I'm usually not incorrect, just only because I've been studying it for 20 years.
Sure. That makes sense.
So where science stands now is certain out of that 82, they do best with a certain part of that 82. And then the remaining 18% do best together as a match. That's where Carl Jung died and left the studies at. My dissertational work, I have seen enough statistical significance to study that certain personality types might do better with their own personality type, which is what I'd like to leave to science and see. If Carl Jung, he couldn't finish his studies, and maybe if I can add on to it at least. So yes, it does. I do look at that. There are certain things that I have realized through my studies in this that Carl Jung was incorrect. The main one I can think of is, for example, where science stands right now is that extroverts do best with introverts, kind of like the yin and yang, right? I look at every relationship, like here you have Cindy, here you have your man. It's a yin and yang, and sometimes you're an extrovert, sometimes you're an introvert, but overall you can't not be an extrovert inherently that you're born with. You're never going to be a natural introvert, right?
You're forced to be in lockdown for an extended period of time,
which is always a negative vibration, but a smart vibration is for always to practice what we're naturally not.
Right.
That makes us more of an yin and yang as a whole in ourselves.
I see what you're saying. So it's good to have if you're a natural extrovert, so it's good to practice,
shutting up sometimes.
Yeah. To not talk all the time.
Right. And if you're an introvert, it's best to practice pretending you're an extrovert, even though it's uncomfortable, and just talking more or engaging more, instead of just sitting in your own shell all the time. I now know that is a definite for all of us. If you're a go type A, practice being a type B or a C. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to make you a more well-rounded human being, right? So in love, I think where the biggest fault where it stood, just because Carl Jung didn't get to finish his work, where it stands now is that extroverts do best with introverts, because that makes a better whole.
Mm.
And yes, we all have seen lots of proof to it. However, I do think that the more involved we get, that it's more of a choice, because the human consciousness in love now is just getting to choose. If you think about it, us women, we didn't get to make money until like what, 1970s, barely, so now we can choose, do we want to work and make money, or do we not want to? So the world is becoming, men get to choose, do I get to be take any woman I want, or do I get to be monogamous? We're getting more into the evolution of choosing. So in that regard, where science stands in love about extroverts and introverts being best match, I'm still studying right now where I believe it's a choice. We're getting that evolved. So you can be an introvert and actually prefer to be with an introvert and that actually be the best match for you, or vice versa. You can be an extrovert and choose to be with an extroverted partner, and that actually be most fulfilling for your heart.
Mm-hmm. So so what I'm hearing you say, it's about what your heart is calling for. It's what you desire, not so much on, not always on what science says. We have a question here from someone, if you care to answer it. What was the last true love you had, Dr. Love? And if you both were compatible, why did you separate?
Well, I'm in a live-in relationship now.
So she's
for 2 years, I've been living with a partner, and it's very fulfilling in very many ways. There are issues, and even as Dr. Love, I have to, consult with other experts such as Cindy and therapists, doctors, healers, however which way, relationship experts. So it is imperfect in a way that I'm trying to figure it out. So to the person that asked the question, the last, how did they word it? Fulfilling?
Your last true love you had. And if you were compatible, why did you separate?
We separated because I have what's called avoidant attachment. So everyone we meet is either a secure attachment, an anxious attachment, or an avoidant attachment. The avoidant attachment people are people that call themselves Dr. Love, have never been married, but fortunately, I've helped hundreds, but really to help myself. If you're in a relationship with an avoidant attachment, run.
To run from you. No.
To answer the question, my most fulfilling relationship, I ran from them. Because avoidant attachment is that one that, people call the commitment phobe, or the one that, God forbid, I don't ghost. I'm too highly evolved to ever ghost someone, but I will run for my dear life and disappear.
Yeah. Well, there's also the anxious attachment, the disorganized attachment style, which can have that combination depending on
the opposite. Avoidant is the opposite of the anxious. The anxious is that, oh my God, I can't live with it. That's the person that wants to stop calling. Oh my God, please say. The avoidant attachment is the one that you don't know what happened. All of a sudden they're gone, and it's confusing. Fortunately, 85%, I believe it is now, of all human beings are secure attachment. And that's what keeps the world going around. Yes, meaning, and those are the people that will stay married for 20 years for the kids. Those are the people that when their partner goes out and runs errands, they're not anxious. and they have nothing to avoid. At that point, they're actually happy. They're gone, right? Like, so secure attachment is what we all need to, and I have actually courses and training that focus on teaching that, because I've had to teach myself. I would consider myself a secure attachment now, but it's taken me 20 years.
Yeah,
Of
it can take time. You can definitely shift it, but you've got to have a conscious awareness, such as you.
And it has to be a decision.
It's a decision, and then making the conscious choices along the way to go get there. But you mentioned the 3 attachment styles, but there's also a 4th one that is anxious avoidant.
Right. I do not have that. I've read all the empirical studies on that. I have, I hear it from my clients, because I speak to hundreds of people in any given year, and a lot in any given month. So I know exactly what it's still where science is still needing more studies on this anxious avoidant. Yes, as an avoidant attachment, put it this way: any man or woman, and this actually has been proven by science. I mean, man, because the research on women is lacking still. But it is proven empirically by science that any man who has never been married by the age of 40, the chances of him ever getting married is 0.05%. That is
Interesting.
A fact by empirical data where it stands now. I believe it might transpire into female, because look at me, I'm 45, never been married, not a priority. I'm trying to force myself into it now, just to like settle down. I can focus on work and whatever, but it's still, who knows? I might be in that 0.05% as well. But for men, so when I work with a woman and we find out if he's never been married, it's much healthier. People are respecting me now in some ways. I at least don't have baggage and divorces. But I'm in that percentage that may never get married. But fortunately, the men I date now at my age, they've already been married once or twice. I love secure attachment people. I only date healthy, secure attachment, highly evolved men that know how to treat a woman, because I already have avoidant attachment. I don't need anything else to make that work.
Yeah. Right. Secure attachment is much easier to, be in relationship with. So we've got one more question. Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
It's what we all need. We are all better off in dating. I'm very careful with my clients to push them towards a secure attachment partner that they may like. Unfortunately, a lot of people, because childhood issues, are drawn to the avoidant.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's much more exciting. There's so much more mystery around it. Well, that's the impression, but secure attachment isn't always exciting. It doesn't always have the up and down, the roller coaster around it. So,
it's a block I think that your work can help people clear.
Mm-hmm. So absolutely.
Right? They aren't attracted to that because it is a risk. And if somebody really wants to get married, it's not advisable to date an anxious or an avoidant. The statistics are, it's more than likely, if you want to get married, they're not going to marry you. They're going to do something like, what did you say? To sabotage. The anxious sabotage. The avoidance.
Yeah, and unless they're working on their triggers, they're going to sabotage. So really quick, before, because I know you've got a great gift that you want to share with the audience, and we're about to run out of time. Can you talk about if a female is an empath, that the human side of her does not get its needs met, as the empath only wants to heal unconditionally to the detriment of the human female's needs?
Well, I think there's a lot of inaccuracies in that statement overall, but
I'm not sure if I would need to learn more about the question, but
you can be an empath and be a secure attachment.
Absolutely.
And not be detrimental to your own access of a healthy, secure relationship.
Yeah, and I can also speak into, the empathic side too. It's, many empaths, the tendency is to be more of an anxious attachment style. Not always, right?
How do you figure that?
Well, because well, at least I'm making a broadband statement, and many of these.
I'll dig into this deeper later, Cindy, because
we'll definitely dig into this later, because in my experience, many of the empaths that I have encountered or worked with tend to be more on the anxious side, and the tendency might be to attract an avoidant, or maybe a more of a narcissistic type, and I use this term very lightly. So more of a narcissistic style personality, or someone that is not necessarily, the opposite of what they truly want in their heart, but they're attracting that other side, because the avoidant or the narcissist is attracted to the empath, because the empath has a lot of light within them, and they are highly sensitive. And the empath can oftentimes, and correct me with your experience too around this, the empath can oftentimes, they have this, such light energy of healing and wanting to heal everyone on the planet too. So there's, that almost, that there can be the tendency to be a little more codependent. Now, again, this is making a statement based on some experiences that I've seen as well. Yeah.
Yes, I know exactly what you're saying. And you can be an empath and absolutely not anxious.
Absolutely.
Anxious and absolutely not empathic.
You can be that too.
I'm dealing with a woman, a client of mine right now, who has a completely anxious lover who threw her and all her things out on the street with no compassion at all. So empathic does not correlate with, in our work, the people that are coming to us, if they're female and paying us, that I can see what you're saying. The empaths tend to be the more compassionate.
Oh, absolutely.
So I see what you're saying, but there are actually a lot of uncompassionate empaths.
Absolutely. And we could have a whole conversation just about the empaths too, because there's so many different dichotomies around an empath and their personality styles, and they tend to be highly sensitive.
Yeah, not necessarily I'm an empath, but I'm not compassionate to a man who doesn't give me my minimum standards of what I consider is reasonable for relationship. And so empath does not necessarily mean compassionate to in love. Now, I'm a very compassionate person to the world at large, to people in general, to myself most of the time, but a man has to earn my compassion, which has nothing to do with me being an empath in understanding whatever it is he's going through. I don't have compassion for it if it's not what I consider decent, which is also subjective and not objective and different for everyone.
Of course. Of course. Oh, we could have a whole different conversation on that.
I know. I just want to talk to you forever, Cindy.
Hours. Well, we'll definitely have to take this off air and do that. And I know that you have a complimentary free gift for the audience, which Amanda has already posted so kindly in our chat, and we'll be emailing it out to the audience as well. Would you care to share a little bit about that before we end?
Yes, I'm so honored to have been invited by Cindy and Amanda to be here. I'm absolutely, anyone who resonates with anything that I've said, I'm totally would love to communicate with you. And let's do an analysis complimentary on me, so you can see if I can be of service to your love life and we resonate in work together. I'm absolutely willing to give that to any of Cindy's viewers. It helps me, it helps my work, and hopefully I could be of service to you as well. So absolutely. It's best to contact me. My website is drlove.com, which is drlovve.com. So love with two B's as in Victor. My email is drlove@drlove.com. Cindy and Amanda have my direct mobile number. And my office number. I'm available 24/7. I work with love emergencies, so that's why I don't close office hours ever, because love emergencies can happen at any time. And I also just work one-on-one with people that just want to fine-tune whatever they have, or get into the psychology of who they are in love, what they're really wanting, what they want to attract, and with Cindy's work, what they want to block. It could be great even, if we do an analysis, somebody could work with Cindy's very good with breaking through blocks to create this everlasting love. Maybe that's something that we could even take on together for someone.
Absolutely. For sure. Yeah. Collaboration is always a way to, be able to support on a deeper level. And you clearly are very educated on the psychological side of things, and really supporting people through their personality styles, and understanding themselves on that psychological level to connect with a partner that is aligned with them. So that's beautiful. And thank you so much for being here today with us. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful conversation, and really fun to chat and start to get to know you. And I know that our watchers and listeners out there have really been blessed with your gifts today. And everyone that's out there today, just know that from our hearts to yours, we're here to support you. And I just want to acknowledge everyone who's been on these interviews today to really up level and acknowledge what it is that might be stopping them from creating the deeper connection that lasts. So here's to you, and I'll bid you guys a very good night. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, Cindy.
Mm-hmm.